What if the one thing that was meant to break you had the power to help someone else to survive? Welcome to Healing Through Chaos, the podcast where pain is transformed into purpose through powerful storytelling. It's the one place that you'll find licensed professionals and survivors meet at the same table to talk lived experience and expertise. I'm your host, John Tay, and this is where your healing journey begins. On today's episode, we talk survival of ideation with Gio the Podfather. Welcome, Gio.
Hey, how you doing, Gentavia?
I'm doing good. Are you ready to get into today's conversation?
Let's get it.
Let's go. So take us back to the beginning. What was your childhood environment like, and when did you first become aware that what you were witnessing at home wasn't normal?
My childhood I was raised by a single mother and my grandmother for the most part. My father was murdered when I was about 14, 15 months old. And for the majority of my childhood, it was me, my mom, my sister in our household. My mom really took pretty good care of us for the most part, but she wasn't as more loving and affectionate like how a traditional mom is. And I received a lot of that from my grandmother. So, in a very traditional sense of a mom and a dad, my mom played the role of my father, being very stern, like no hugs, all that I love you stuff, mushy good stuff. She went with all that. And my grandmother was very nurturing, loving, come here, baby, give me kisses and all that stuff. But I was a pretty adventurous kid, went through a lot of traumatic things that I could say now. If you ask my mom, she'll say the opposite, but that's neither here nor there. It's a whole nother conversation. But growing up, I did witness a lot of things that, from my perspective now, I know are traumatic events because of the domestic violence, of the emotional abuse that I went through, even the physical abuse at some times, the verbal abuse at times. But overall, I struggle to say, was it good or bad, because I only have one childhood. I can't really compare it to anything else. However, I realized that the things that I was experiencing weren't normal once I got into like college and got a little older and actually started to study psychology, study like mental health, became an educator. And so once I realized the things that I went through were traumatic events, it wasn't until later in life that I realized it was abnormal, because at the same time, a lot of my peers were going through other traumatic things, had other very serious, like drug addicted parents, alcoholic parents. And that's why I'm thankful at this stage of life that my mom was more so like just emotionally unavailable. She wasn't very nurturing. And that's the thing. She wasn't like some drug addict or belligerent drunk person all the time. You know what I'm saying? So now I have a different perspective of my childhood. That's why I don't like to say it was bad per se, but I think that there are some things that could have been different that would have shaped me to be differently. So overall, it wasn't a terrible childhood. I remember times where we went to Disney World with my grandmother, for my mom taking us on trips to Dallas for my sister's birthday and going to Six Flags. So I had a lot of good moments along with bad moments. And I think just being a black man in America, being black in America, being raised by a single black woman in this country, it kind of comes with the territory. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of culture, single moms to play both roles and play both sides. And a lot of times, black mothers end up being unemotionally available to their kids, but it's literally due to having to maintain both sides in that aspect. A lot of people don't really look at how single mothers, especially single black mothers, they have to play both roles. And being black in America, it triples the problems that you actually go through in this country. So thank you. Now, you did mention a lot of domestic violence growing up. What are some of the earliest moments that stayed with you, and how did they shape your sense of safety?
One of the one of the very first times was actually not with one of my mom's partners. It was actually with a family member, actually one of my aunts. I had to been like maybe 3, 4 years old. I remember they got into a really bad physical altercation. We were living with her at the time, and I remember the police came, and the police coming at that time was created a sense of safety in a sense. But as I got older, when I would probably say from the age of 6, 7 to about 12, 13, my mom was in some very abusive relationships with a couple men. Not at the same time, but just it was a pattern. But the most significant one was when she was married. She actually married this man, and The domestic violence was somewhat normalized at the time. And I say that because even now she'll try to deny it. But I can remember a very specific instance where it was like, I never felt safe at home because he was more abusive towards me than he was to my mother. And there was a time when they were fighting. It was like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I remember because I was getting dressed for school. And my mom was working for this company called Bell South, and was Bell. I think they might have been bought out by AT&T by now, but it was Bell South at the time. And I had a cell phone, and I remember calling the police on that cell phone that I had hidden. And for whatever reason, this man comes into the room as I'm on the phone with the cops. And I remember he took the phone, he threw it, he hit me, threw me down, types of shit. And but that was the moment when my mom left him. I remember coming home from school that day and our house was packed up, U-Haul outside, and she was leaving him. And I think that without going into all the details of it, I think that because of how involved in that situation I was, that was the catalyst that led her to actually lead this man. But seeing all of that throughout my childhood and witnessing that, and even having at times I would, well, with my sister's father, this is what I say, and so I'm kind of going back. With my sister's father, he was extremely abusive as well. And he was the one that I actually fought with my mom. I can remember him throwing me across the room, trying to get him off my mom. And it just always made home not feel safe at times when there was another man there. Because all the time, none of these men were my father. A lot of times, these men would say little slick shit in my ear. My mom wasn't around, or say little mean, evil, just evil shit to me that I would never say to a child. And so that always made me fear when my mom's boyfriends or her husband at the time would come around. But as I got older, I found myself going out a lot, meaning I was outside with friends, just constantly staying gone. I think because I was a boy, my mom would just let me go and spend the night over whoever's house. So I always did my best just to be gone from the house as much as possible, because even our relationship started to deteriorate as I got older, because I just began to speak up for myself a lot more. And I was very rebellious, extremely rebellious towards my mom, because at a certain point, she made me start basically taking care of myself when I started working. Oh, you working now? You got to pay your own. And so, as an adult, I understand why she did that. But as a child, or not as a child, as a teenager, to me in my brain, it's, oh, if I got to take care of myself, I'm grown. I can do whatever it is I want to do. And so that created a lot of conflict between us. And so I eventually ended up getting put out of her house and moving with my grandmother when I was 15. And I just pretty much never looked back. At that point, I went and lived with my grandmother. I stayed with her for about maybe a year and a half, and I was paying her rent as well. So when I turned 18, me and her got into a really bad altercation because she still didn't. I remember, never forget, I wanted to go to St. Louis for my 18th birthday. She was like, oh, no, you can't do that. And then also some things came out about my sexuality at the time, and that just created an even bigger rift between us. So from that point, when I left my grandmother's house and moved in with some friends and their family, I was just on my own ever since. So there was just a lot of emotionally traumatic things that I went through with my family. There was never a lot of serious, I don't know, I guess it depends on what you consider serious, but I survived it, I overcome it. And now at this stage of life, it's like it happened. I'm still here and I'm able to move on from it. I try not to harbor any resentment towards them. My grandmother's no longer here, and we had our own healing. And I guess you could say she actually literally apologized to me at one point for the things she did. But me and my mom, our relationship is, it's a work in progress. I've always had the mindset of, despite what she did to me, that's my mother. I'm a lover and respect her always the best that I can. But there's still times where it's just, I can't deal with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing that's not commonly talked about, especially with Black men, is how they become pretty much the protector of their mother, of their household, especially when that male figure is not there or stable. And I do want to talk about you stepping into that protector role as a child. How did that affect your identity, especially as you were trying to understand yourself?
I think I remember from a very early age being told that I was the man of the house. And at the same time, I was not allowed to necessarily be the man of the house all the time. I was only allowed to be the man of the house for certain instances or in certain moments. And what I now know is because I had a younger sister. And so my mom and my sister had a different type of bond. And now I know it's because they're both females, they're both women. So they were able to sometimes like kind of tease me because I was always been a little skinny dude. I'll never forget them calling me string bean, little stick body boy and things like that. So although I was the man of the house, I was never, it wasn't like a constant thing. However, what it did was, and even just seeing the dynamics of my family, it made me desire to be a protector, a provider, to go to school, to get a good job, to be this asset to my family. Because at a certain point, it was in my teenage years and transitioning to college, I realized how the world was and how society shaped my family to be the way that they are. And so into my like early 20s and even up until I would say the past like 5, 6 years, I always wanted to be a provider, be a people pleaser and help people around me and give them money and help my sister and do this. But honestly, over the past couple years, I've really stepped away from that role because I realized how trying to be the man of the family never allowed me to be myself. I never really had an opportunity to figure out who I was until I really let that go and realized that I'm not responsible to take care of nobody. It is not my responsibility to work so hard so I could buy my mom a house in my life. You know what I'm saying? I know that's a thing in our culture where we want to move our mom out the hood and do this, do that for our family. Yet at the same time, that's not necessarily my story anymore. Would I like to do that for them? Yeah, but not really because that's not my purpose for being here. And so once I let that go, it kind of, I won't say it created an identity. I'll say it like this: my identity shifted to really focus on myself, to really try to understand who I am, what do I want outside of trying to be somebody that can take care of everybody.
Absolutely. And I identified with that in myself. My father, he passed away when I was 15 years old. And being the oldest of the house, I always had that responsibility of being the leader of the family. So when I kind of took on that masculine role and thinking I had to take care of my mom and make sure she was straight and things like that. And I sure enough went through an identity crisis that didn't even realize it was an identity crisis until the age of 30 when I gave birth to my own child. So I too identify with literally trying to find your own purpose because I'm happy you said that sometimes our purpose isn't to move mom out the hood, is literally break those curses and get ourselves into a place of where we're able to be comfortable, we're able to identify, we're able to build past the traumas that we went through by either sharing our stories or building communities. So that was literally 15 years of my life I was wasting chasing, trying to make sure my mom had somewhere to stay, trying to make sure my mom had this, that, and the third. So I totally understand it. And I'm a female, and a lot of people say you stepped in the masculine energy. Sure did. And I was comfortable in it for a while until I literally started saying, hey, who am I? So that's a great point to make because a lot of people don't realize that there are children out here who go through those same types of situations of seeing their moms go through that and literally carry the load on our back of making sure that they're straight. So you got to be careful, especially when it comes down to finding your own purpose. So let's talk about when you were in Brazil. You said that things escalated quickly. What was different about that period, and why did it become such a turning point for you?
So when my mom was married to this guy, he was a basketball player overseas in Brazil. And I was in was like the 5th or 6th grade. I remember we were over there for 3 or 4 months. The entire summer and part of the school year, we were in Brazil. And being there was living a lifestyle of luxury. We lived very well. I remember going to the mall and people running up to him and wanting his autograph and shit like that, like going to 5-star restaurants. So again, my story has never been poor and didn't have nothing, didn't have my mom's always found a way to get some money or get with somebody who has some money. However, that man was so fucking abusive to my mother. And I'll never forget a time where they were fighting in the room. And I remember being like, there's nothing that I could do because I didn't even know, could you dial 911? What is 911? We're in a foreign country. These people are speaking Portuguese. The police come, I'm not going to know how to speak to them. And then I remember there was a time where I peed on the couch. And when I tell you that man beat the shit out of me till it, and honestly, I actually wet the bed for a very long time for a number of reasons that I don't want to get into, but those were two moments where it was like, I can't even defend myself or my mother from this man. And then at the same time, I remember my mom taking us to the beach, and there would be times where he wouldn't be around, and she would just say, or she literally said, I want you to experience life in a different way than she did. And so, fast forward to now, like, I understand that her as a parent, she was more so treating me and doing things, even by being with this man who was extremely abusive, because he provided us a different type of lifestyle that she wanted her children to have. And that's why sometimes it's, even thinking about the time in Brazil, it's like an interesting duality because, yes, I had a great time, great memories from living there. And by her being married to him, I had a different type of lifestyle. But behind the scenes, on the flip side, was it like there's a lot of fucking abuse? You know what I'm saying? There were times he had you in there, you just screaming at the top of your lungs, and there was nothing that I could do. So that's what Brazil was like for me when I lived there.
And how did those experiences impact your mental and your emotional health once you got older?
I think one of the things that it's done is it's caused me to look at relationships very differently. One of the things that I've never, one, I'm not really a relationship type of person. What I mean by that is I haven't dated a bunch of people or been in a lot of serious committed relationships. I've had one. I was engaged in a relationship with somebody for about 8 years, but outside of that, it's been it because I guess it makes me fear. I don't want to say fear because I'm not afraid to be in a relationship, but it just makes me not. I don't value. I don't want to say.
You're more cautious.
There you go. I'm extremely cautious to get heavily involved with anybody because I know, one, how I get when I'm in my feelings, and two, people are toxic and they think that fighting, arguing is okay. And it's just, yeah, I think that's the best word for it. It's made me extreme, even overly cautious about being in relationships. Because I've had some interesting people in my lives that have been pretty cool and nurturing, but honestly, once I really get to know somebody or I see that, oh, we kind of vibe, we kind of get along, I step back because honestly, and at this point in my life, I don't desire companionship. I don't desire to be with somebody in a loving relationship, getting married. I'm more so just looking for a roommate at this point. I don't want too much from anybody else. Also, because I really don't want to have kids now. I think that's probably the biggest thing that my childhood and my family background has switched for me now that I'm much older is I don't want to have kids. I don't want to have family. I don't that I'll probably just conclude and say that that's probably what it's done is just made me not want to have kids or a family of my own.
Absolutely. And I can talk a little bit about my experiences and going through this very toxic relationship with my child's father, and just now being a lot more cautious myself in who I date and who I give my time to, just literally being more cautious in who you allow around you into your energy. Because once you go on that healing journey yourself, it's literally coming to self. and saying, hey, what is it I really do want and what is it I really do need? And everybody does not desire companionship, y'all, but some people still do, and it's okay to want that. But at the same time, understand that some people go on healing journeys and they don't desire that because they literally become whole within self. So thank you for sharing with our audience on that one, because there's a big conversation going on right now on social media of, if you don't want companionship, you're just a bad person, when no, in reality, some people literally find wholeness within self, and that's okay for them, actually. So I you brought that up.
Thank you.
Now, again, you are a survivor of ideation. What did that season of your life look like? And what were the internal battles you were facing that people couldn't see?
So I had my first attempt when I was 16. And this was right before I moved in with my grandmother. So I think I told you earlier that she had kicked me out, but I had a car and I had money. So I was living in an extended stay motel that I was paying, I think it was like 190, almost like $200 a week. And so I was living there for 3 or 4 weeks. Long story short, she was going to turn me over to the state to be a ward of the state. And I was going to get emancipated. And that's when I crashed my car when I was 16. So that was the first time. But so I've always had this idea that I didn't want to be here, always playing in the back of my mind, especially when life got really tough. It's my mom don't want me, my family don't want me. Like, why am I here? Because I always wanted to be an asset to my family. So it's always like this back and forth mindset shift of, oh, I gotta do this because I gotta be here for my family, I gotta be there for my sister. Then it's, they don't even like me for real. Why am I here? What am I doing this for? And it really came to a head during the pandemic in 2020 when I was, I like to say, semi homeless. I was living in a hotel at the time. The world was what it was, George Floyd, all that shit was happening. And me and my mom got into it really bad during this time. And it was just a time where I was just like, if this is what the world is, I definitely don't want to be a part of this. I felt like the world was ending. And I know that had a lot to play with my ideation. But for a number of reasons, actually, I found a really good friend slash therapist that I could talk to. I had a business. I started my podcast, Diary of a Mad Black Man. So even though I'm still having these thoughts of not wanting to be here, I'm still also trying to fight through them. And it was through creativity, through meeting people that just accepted me for who I was, that led me to even still continue to live, because I found community, I found family outside of my relatives, and a lot of therapy, a lot of trying different medications at times. And it's still a struggle to this day, honestly. However, I've made a commitment to not do that. And I just deal with the thoughts. I recognize now that thoughts are just that, they're thoughts. I found through I did 7 months of EMDR therapy. And one of the things I learned from that was that your thoughts are normal responses to you being a human. And because of the level of trauma that I've been through, it's also a sign of how much I love myself. And that's what keeps me grounded when they get really loud, because it's, wow, that's the extent that I would take to relieve myself of this pain and mental anguish that I'm going through. Yet at the same time, I do my best to stay grounded, to eat right, to stay hydrated, because all of these other factors influence that and influence the ideations. It's just still a journey to this day. I'm not gonna hold you. It's still a journey to this day. And what I mean by that is that the thoughts still exist. But like I said, I've just learned that they're just thoughts. Don't act on them. If they get too loud, I have things that I do, people that I can reach out to. More recently, I've really been isolating myself. I'm kind of how we talked a little bit off mic. I'm about to really take a break from social media, a break from podcasting, and just because these algorithms, they just put anything in front of your face now. It's not about what you follow or what you want to look at. It's just they just throwing shit at you. And I'm not built for that. My brain's not wired for that, to just have any and everything thrown at me all day, every day, or whenever I am on there. I'm constantly finding new ways to adjust to how the world is changing and evolving. And so now I'm at a stage where, like I said, they still exist, but I'm making adjustments to be able to navigate this world differently. And that just means I'm going to, like I said, I've been isolating myself a little bit, and not in a negative way, in a very positive and constructive way, being able to sit with myself. One of the things that I do have now, I have 30, 32, 33 plants in my house now. So that helps. And just finding new things and really go following through with those things. Like I said, even having plants is one of them.
Absolutely. And I think you just real deal gave society an inside look into a black man in America's mindset. Because a lot of people don't talk about how COVID and the police shootings and things like that affects a black man's mind. And we could talk about how many people have actually succeeded due to the stresses of society, and especially black men not feeling loved and welcomed in this country. And I just, you left me speechless in that moment, because I have never actually asked anybody how do they actually mentally feel seeing that on TV. And a lot of them would probably go, as long as it ain't me, or if it's me, I'm going to do this in case. But a lot of people don't talk about that. They don't consider the mental aspect of how seeing another black man on TV and the injustice of it, and affects them in their day-to-day life, even if it's not them. So thank you again for just being honest and open in that conversation, because you really don't hear that.
Yeah, I feel like it's the harsh reality that nobody's talking about.
It is.
As a black man in this country, I know that if something happens to me, I don't feel safe calling the police. I don't feel safe going to the hospital. I'm constantly having to walk on eggshells to stay alive, it seems. And then for me personally, my dynamics with my family and my friends, like there's no real safety net around me for real. If something happens to me, or if I do spat, I've been involuntarily committed to psych wards multiple times against my will. And that's because of how psychology views black men.
Yep.
Something else that came out during that time, I want to say it was even might have been 2021, the American Psychological Association actually issued an apology for their role in upholding racism and white supremacy. So to know all of this and then to be experiencing it at the same time is something that I know personally don't have a lot of people that understand that or are willing to even talk about it or admit it. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's not until I get into spaces like a dope podcaster like yourself where I'm able actually to be honest and talk about I never feel safe for real. There's always something that I'm having to fear, but also to have to make sure that I am conducting myself in a certain way to survive.
Just being a black woman in America, I can't even, and I won't step into that lane of actually thinking I know what black men are thinking and what black men are going through, because y'all have it a little bit more harder than us, because you have to look over your shoulder, you have to try to fit into these spaces that still don't want you in these spaces, and then you're seeing it on social media about how everybody's just dogging you and calling you lazy and bums, and everybody goes to jail right after high school. So it's literally how the system is set up, is literally set up for black men to literally graduate high school, and within the first 5 years of them graduating high school, either end up dead or in prison. So it's literally like the system is set up for y'all to feel. But nobody is ever asking, how do you mentally feel? And a lot of men feel just like you, Gio. They don't feel safe. They feel like they got what is it called? Like a whole stone or rock on their back, and they got to carry that just because they're a black man. And if they do show those emotions, they're labeled all these types of things. And it's just a conversation that I honestly and truly wish that we would change our minds on, so a lot more black men can get out there and tell their stories and how they actually feel. Because even black men sitting in the same room, they try to ignore those emotions as well. And I've seen that myself, a black man asking a black man, hey brother, how you doing today? And he goes, I'm good. You got to handle the business, got to take care of the family. And that's how it comes across. You're okay. But are you really okay mentally? So again, thank you for just being so honest and giving us that inside look into a black man in America's mental space when it comes to a lot of these things that's going on in society, because we don't ask those questions on how do y'all really feel, and it needs to change, honestly. Absolutely. Now, can we talk about a specific moment or a person or even a realization that interrupted that downward spiral and made you reconsider your path?
There, honestly, there was a few things. One, I created this community called the Black Podcast Club. Podcasters and creatives. It was designed to support, motivate, and uplift each other. It doesn't really exist anymore. However, creating that community, and this was something else I did during the pandemic. I met a really dope person. Her name is Keela. We've done episodes of my podcast, Diary of a Mad Black Man. Between her, my pod brother Will, then will probably be two people that I met that I actually was just able to talk to, like kind of how you and I are talking now. That really honestly is the thing that saved me the most. And yeah, just having people, strangers that I never met, being willing to listen, still willing to show up. That's what saved me and helped me, was having that community. And even though it's not as, like, even though it doesn't really exist anymore, I still have those people in my life. But what it ultimately did was it gave me hope that I could find people that align with me. I can create spaces for myself and people will show up. And so that's why, like I told you earlier, it's as difficult as it is to be on social media now. I
Mhm.
found hope. Those people instill hope in me that there are good people out there that will accept you and be there for you and show up for you. I just now know that social media, just the direction that the world is going, that's just not for me right now. But meeting people like them is really honestly what has helped me get to this point.
And that's another great point to make because in order for men, especially black men, to start being honest about what they're going through, you have to create these support spaces for them to actually be themselves and tell their story. So I'm happy that you actually brought that up and starting the actual podcast about it because a lot of people would still be fearful to actually come out and say, hey, this is my story. But support is literally where it all starts and getting the message out. So I'm happy you brought that up as well. So we've been talking about healing. Now we know healing that it isn't linear. What
Mhm.
does the process of rebuilding yourself look like on a day to day?
One of the things I'm doing now is I am taking mental health medications. I am seeing a psychiatrist and a therapist. I'm waking up every day taking care of my plants. I try to drink as much water as possible. These meds make sure I get enough hours of sleep every night. And honestly, over the past couple months, it's really just been me just taking it one day at a time and doing whatever I want to do, focusing on myself and not really even focusing on the outside voices or noises that tell me I should be doing this or I should have this. I'm 36 and it's a part of me is like, I should have a house, I should have a better car, I should have more money in the bank. But no, that's not your story. This is not your path. And so with, like I said, with therapy, the medications, the psychiatrist, the therapist, and all these people that I have around me that I tend to tap into, day to day, it's focusing on myself and that moment, that day. There's been some financial struggles that I went through, and it doesn't affect me as it once did because it's like they not gonna get that money today. I don't have the money today, so I'm not gonna allow myself to stress about it. Let me go do something else. I find myself taking a lot of showers. I take about there's some days I take 5, 6 showers in a day just because getting in the shower and allowing the water to just run over my body it does something for me. So doing things like that, even just getting outside and just going for a walk or getting in the car and just going for a drive, as high as gas is, if I feel like I just need to get out of the house and move, I'm gonna get out of my house and move. So it's a day by day, step by step, sometimes hour by hour thing, but I'm solely focused on myself in a very selfish and unapologetic way right now. And like I said, whatever I feel I want to do to help me feel better is what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. And I love how you explain that doing what's best for you in that moment, whether it's hour by hour or day by day or even second by second. That's another thing that a lot of people feel selfish about, when in reality, that's literally what keeps us going and keeps us human. And another thing that you brought up, which a lot of people don't talk about, is actually going to therapy or going to a psychiatrist and taking medication if you need it to help you continue advancing in life. So again, you're literally talking about all the things that are literally, I say, pushed under the rug in the Black community and looked down upon in the Black community, because we have created this narrative of the Black man just got to be this person and be this God in some way. He can't feel anything. So I'm thankful that you are literally telling people, hey, the healing doesn't look the same for every man, and it does not look the same for every Black man. So thank you again, Gio, on that one, because I'm telling you, people are literally just ignorant when it comes to the conversations these days.
Yeah, because and I'm saying this too. Everybody's life experience is different. I've been around men who have a wife and children. That is a different type of life that you're living. And I feel like, honestly, if I did have a wife and some kids, I may not be as sad and depressed at times, or feeling like I need to have this mask up, because I will be able to have people around me that I love. But because I'm single, I don't have no kids, and I'm often by myself, yeah, I'm gonna take these medications because it does help me get up and perk up in the morning. It helps me go to sleep at night. Versus if I had a partner or a spouse that I was next to and I could talk to and could soothe me, because psychology does show that having those things does do something for the brain and the well-being as well. So I've learned to accept, and it's more so recently that this acceptance is that my life is different and my life is mine and this is my past. So I need to do what's best for me.
Absolutely. And let's talk about, how did your relationship with your past begin to shift as you did start to heal?
I've had to forgive myself while grieving myself at the same time. That's probably where I'm at now in present day, is I'm grieving the ideologies that I once believed about who I would be at 36 years old. By 36, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have been a father. I'd have been a husband by now. I'd have had a house, white picket fence. That was destined to be. And I believe that wholeheartedly, because I graduated high school. I got the bachelor's. I went to graduate school. I got the master's. You know what I'm saying? So I did everything in my early 20s that the world told me that I needed to do to live a certain kind of lifestyle in your 30s and 40s. However, now I am grieving, and I've been grieving that man for a long time, because it's like that's just not your reality anymore. That's not who you are right now. And if I constantly beat myself up because that wasn't my reality, it would have just made life worse. And so now I'm in this acceptance stage of my actual reality, my actual life that I have, and learning to love the man that I am presently, not who I believe I should be or who society says I should be. There's this idea out there of a high value man, the dude that's making six figures, that's 6 foot or taller. You know what I'm saying? That's what society tells us makes you a man. You know what I'm saying? Because you're big and you're macho and you can pay somebody else's bills on top of yours. That's not my story. That's not my ministry. And that's just not who I am. And so the grieving process of letting that go has also just allowed me to explore myself more, to love myself more. And at times it's not easy. I said that I have plenty of days where I'm just like, fuck this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here no more. But at the same time, it's like, this is your journey. These are the cards you were dealt, and I'm playing my hand the best that I can. So it really boils down to just back to one day at a time. Take it one day at a time.
Absolutely. And I think everybody, if they're willing to go on that healing journey, everybody goes through that process, because I went through that same process too, as I said earlier in today's episode, of the having that identity crisis, becoming a mother, then trying to figure out who I was. I kid you not. by the age of 30, when I gave birth to my daughter, I said that I was going to be married, I was going to have the house, and I pretty much had the same idea as you, Gio. And when I became a single mother, it was like, oh my God, life is over. And I had to figure out a way to keep going in that moment. And so you do grieve that old self of you, or where you set these standards so high and you feel like you followed all the rules, because I got my bachelor's degree and all that stuff too. So you go through that process of giving yourself that grace, because a lot of times we set those goals, and and those goals are not necessarily unattainable, but it's just you set those goals because society literally has programmed that into your brain, like this has to be your goal. You got to go and get the bachelor's, like you said. You got to go get the master's, like you said. Then you got to go and find your spouse. You got to have all these kids. Then you buy your house. Then you become a millionaire and all that other type of stuff. So society literally does program these things into us. So by the time we get in our 30s or mid 30s, we're like, hey, I'm feeling, when in reality, no, we just literally going on the journey. That's not literally everybody's journey. So I'm happy that you brought that up, because that's for men and women. And I experienced the same thing myself. And I have a moment where I do grieve that 25-year-old me who said I was going to be living in a whole nother state and have $1 million in the bank account by now. But that's just literally not the reality. And that's just, you have to find a point where you do give yourself that grace and find peace in where you're at in that moment. So I'm right there with you on that one, Gio.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just kind of like accepting reality for what it is. The best way I could say it,
Right.
because constantly living in ideologies of who I want to be or who I desire to be or who society tells me I should be is gonna, for me, it created a lot of mental anguish. So now, and it's not easy, but I've really practiced in just accepting where I am and living in the present moment. That's really what it boils down to. I do my best to stay present in the moment with where I am right here and right now.
Absolutely. And that's easier said than done, just stand in the present moment, because I'll let you know that I have moments where I look back at the past and then try to look so far into the future. I sometimes overwhelm myself. And sure enough, burnout and all that type of stuff can come from as well, like literally looking too far in the future and not remembering where you are in the present, and forgetting, not necessarily forgetting about the past, learning from the past and being gracious towards yourself right now in that moment, because we all have that story of where we've come from, a lot of things. So when you are in that moment of where you feel like you need to look far in the future and where how far you got to go, remember just how far you came is how I look at it.
Mm.
So let's talk about, what role did creativity, expression, or platforms like Podfather or Diary of a Mad Black Man play helping you process or reclaim your story?
It played a major role because I'll speak specific to my podcast. So, Diary of a Mad Black Man, I started in 2019, and that podcast helped me become comfortable in sharing my story. I like that it's been audio only. I've done video podcasting, but it hasn't been heavy in my journey. Yet it allowed me the space and opportunity just to express myself, just to literally get it off my chest at times. And Podfather has been my Instagram name for a long time, and now it's Gio the Podfather because the Podfather is trademark. So I just had to throw a little Gio on there to kind of separate myself. But ultimately, what that social media handle and the podcast have done for me is it allowed me just to express myself in various ways. A lot of people try to maintain a certain aesthetic online. A lot of people do podcasts and they're very performative at times. For me, podcasting was where I took the mask off. I took the veil off. I was able just to really be myself. I didn't feel the need to say something for clickbait because when I started podcast, I didn't know what clickbait was. There was no clips. There was no need to try to drive traffic to this podcast because when I was doing it, and even as I'm concluding it this month, it's inward gratification that is satisfied just by pushing publish on an episode. It's not about, and honestly, I don't want my podcast to have millions and millions of downloads and plays and views. That's not why I started this. And so it really allowed me a different vehicle that allowed me to become more comfortable with myself, that allowed me to express myself and also understand myself. Because a few times that I have gone back and listened to episodes and heard myself, I'm like, damn, I really am like a dope ass person. I'm not crazy or deranged, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to say that like it's a negative thing. I think there's a lot of sensitivity around words and things like that now. But despite what I've been through, built an amazing platform. I've connected with amazing people. I've shared amazing stories. I've done great work. I've traveled the country. I've made money. I've made friends. You know what I'm saying? Has it been millions and millions of dollars? Have I had sold out shows with the people? No, but in my eyes, to me, I've been extremely successful in podcasting. Things that I've experienced have surpassed my initial goals or ideas of what this could ever be. And I'm very grateful for those experiences because it helped me get to this place that I am now. And one of the things that I can honestly say is, had I never started podcasting in 2019, I wouldn't have made it to 2026. It was literally that deep of a journey for me. And that's also the reason why I'm now prepared to kind of take a really hard break and pause from everything that's happening in social media and podcasting, because I've learned a lot. And now I'm in a space of I really want to apply it to myself, apply it to life as I've done before. But now it's just a different chapter of life where I also want to be a little bit more private. I also just don't want to, I don't like the way the algorithms and things are going now. They say you got to bully the algorithm in order to get to push a platform. And I never started any of this stuff to build or create or do any of that stuff. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's been a beautiful thing that has helped me heal in ways unimaginable.
Absolutely. And I love how you put that because when I started this podcast, I really started it because I really wanted to hear people's stories. And I remember my story and feeling silenced and things like that. And it wasn't to attract a million people to one platform. It was one of those things where I wanted to literally just create a space where people could come and share their stories to help others that may be inspired by their stories or going through some of the same things that they were going through. So that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially when it comes to social media, because I've heard that too. You got to bully the algorithm. And a lot of times I see people posting 10 times a day, and that I just don't have that type of time on my hands.
I'm not doing
That's too much time on your hands. You literally got to keep up with every single trend. Trends change literally about an hour depending on what the trend is. So it's like, and I've seen people go literally bankrupt trying to go out and purchase things to keep up with everybody else. So social media, it really has changed. And we got AI now. So now you got to figure out if that's real or if it's fake and all that. And it really is, social media starting to become more so of an energy drainer than what it used to be, of people connecting and finding your community and things like that. So I totally agree with you. And I'm going to take me a break as well from podcasting at the end of this month. But I'm telling y'all, if you real deal actually into that social media stuff, just hey, give yourself that grace on the days that you don't feel like doing it, because I'm telling you, it's gonna change literally every single day. And if you're doing it now, you're gonna have to keep doing it in order to keep up with the millions of people out there.
it. That's very true.
So let's talk about triggers. How do you navigate your triggers or memories today, especially when they resurface unexpectedly?
Honestly, I allow them to happen. I allow myself to respond however I feel I need to respond in the moment. I'll be honest. I didn't have to cuss a few people out because you deserved it. You know what I'm saying? I've never been a mean hearted or mean spirited person. But when it comes to you doing something that I've told you repeatedly not to do, so now I got to really let you know why I'm upset with you. I've also people who consistently trigger me, you're cut off. But I also just allow myself to be a human being. I love to cry. I love to cry. I love to be like, okay, I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm gonna go lay down because that's better than always cussing people out. I'm not encouraging nobody to go out here and cussing people out, but however, I've stopped biting my tongue is probably what I should be saying as well. And like I said, I just allow myself to be a human being. You're
Absolutely.
going to be triggered. That's something I've learned through therapy. There's no way to live life and not be triggered by something. I've learned to expand my capacity to be able to just deal with life. Life is going to trigger you. Life is going to be hard. Life is going to be difficult at times. And I allow myself to move through those hard, difficult times however I feel I need to move through them, or however my body responds to me experiencing a triggering moment or a difficult time. And one of the things I also try to do is give myself grace. Just give
Yeah.
yourself a little bit of grace. If I feel like I overreacted or didn't handle a situation the best way, okay, life goes on. You
There
might
you go.
have reacted there. You might have said something maybe you shouldn't have said, or you might have made a decision that you probably shouldn't have made. But hey, it happens. It's life. We move on. Life moves
There you go. And I saw myself in that conversation because I used to be a person that would hold my tongue and I bite it off pretty much and let people just get over on me. Now, being 5 years into my healing journey, now I will literally either cuss you out or literally cut you off and not say anything to you. And a lot of people find that negative, or you could put the mental health term on it all you want to, but at the end of the day, I'm doing what's best for me. And people have to understand that sometimes if you're a messed up person, you have to go and check yourself. And sometimes it takes somebody cussing you out for you to go check yourself.
on. And this is my thing too. Sometimes I got to get disrespectful to let you know how respectful I've always been.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
also learned that you got to address when things come up in life and they bother you. I'm learning to address it right then and there in the moment as soon as it happens. Don't let stuff fester. Don't let people, like this is something I recently experienced. Don't let these people on the job constantly keep saying these little slick comments and jokes at you. And then when I blow up about it, because it's been going on all year, now you looking like the crazy one. No, I'm nipping shit in the bud right then and there on the spot initially, however it comes out. Because if I don't address things that bother me, those things may consistently happen until I address them. And I'd rather address them initially than allow things to fester.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that you included the workplace because that was the one place that I literally just bit on completely off in the workplace, trying to just let it ride, let it be. So I'm with you on that one. If you literally, whether if it's a job, a relationship, a friendship, it don't matter. If you literally going through a situation where a person just plain out disrespecting you, check it right then. Because if you don't, they're gonna continue to do it over and over again till you finally do check it
Immediately.
immediately. And you got me and Gio's approval on that one. Check it, y'all. Looking at your life now, what does strength mean to you compared to what it meant when you were a child?
Ooh, what does strength look like now? Strength looks like getting up every day and still believing that this world's going to be better, that it's going to get better. Strength is, I'm not a super religious person, but I am a faithful person, a spiritual person. And I just believe that everything's working out for the greater good of all. Strength looks like being honest with myself at times and being honest with other people when I don't want to, not always being a people pleaser. So it looks a little different than what it was when I was a child, because growing up and even all the way up until like my early 20s, I always wanted to please everybody around me. I would sometimes shrink myself or not express myself out of making other people comfortable. And so now, nah, it is all about me, very selfishly, very unapologetically. And I do still want people to be comfortable around me. I'm not some damaged or mean spirited person, but at the same time, strength really looks like believing in myself, loving myself, nurturing myself, and protecting myself to the best of my abilities without fear of hurting somebody else or somebody else being offended. Because if you're offended or upset or feel some way because I'm moving a certain way or I have a certain expectation for myself that's going to help me be able to maintain myself and my sanity, that's not a me problem. That's a you problem.
There you go.
And
I
it just is what it is.
And I'm just gonna say amen on that one, because if you, I used to be a people pleaser too, and would literally just completely forego who I was and what I needed to please everybody in the room. And life teaches you lessons, and so once you learn them lessons, I now tell people, if you don't like me, good.
You're supposed to. You
If
ain't supposed to.
if you don't like me, good. Go check yourself, and you will eventually find out why you're not liking me. But that's literally how I look at life now. Some people for a reason, some there for a season. So you got to know which ones is which. So if they ain't with you, I ain't gonna say that word that I want to say, but you said it for me. So we've come to the end of our episode today, and I do want to ask you, how do you hope your story inspire others who may have gone through the same experiences, or maybe battling silent battles right now?
I hope somebody hears my story, receives my story, and just you're able to understand that you can get through it. As cliche as it sounds, I can remember times when I was depressed and sad or going through a deep spell of ideation. It was just you at certain times, honestly, you can't receive that. You can't receive a positive message when you're sitting in such heavy negativity. But I hope people are inspired to continue to be themselves, live their lives unapologetically for themselves, as well as understand that there are good people in the world, that there are good relationships that you can create and form. That's one of the things that I'm understanding about myself now, is that I used to always say, oh, nobody loves me. I don't have no friends. Yes, you do. There are plenty of people that love you. If you were to die today, there are going to be people that are going to be sad that they got something to do next weekend. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to be buried somewhere. So it's like, I want people to understand that your emotions are valid, especially Black men. You got to get out of this so overly macho,
Right.
big provider mentality. Like, oh, that is cool. Everything has a time and a place. But at the end of the day, just be a human being. And I want people to, and I say this even to myself, I have to learn and practice just being a human being outside of all these other titles and identities that are me. But at the end of the day, I'm a human being having a human experience. And what you're going through, what you're feeling, what you're expressing is somewhat normal.
Oh, I love that. And before we go, we're going to make sure that we get all your information. Let us know how we can find the Diary of a Mad Black Man, which I absolutely love that title, y'all. And let us know your socials. Let us know our details.
As of right now, Gio the Podfather on Threads and TikTok, basically. And Diary of a Mad Black Man is audio only podcast available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio Podcasts, and any audio platform for podcasts. Honestly, like I was telling you, I am about to take a huge social media break. I'll probably still be on Threads for a little bit longer. I'm not sure, and TikTok, but Diary of a Mad Black Man is always going to exist. So if you ever want to listen to more of my story, there's over 190 episodes out right now.
Wow. And I will be leaving all that information down in the description box below. Any final words before we leave today's conversation?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on this podcast. It was like I'm reminded in this moment that I really like being interviewed.
Wow.
I like sharing my story. So I thank you for the time and the space. And to anybody watching and listening, understand that life is a journey. Just keep going.
Thanks again to Gio the Podfather for coming on and sharing his personal journey. And if today's message resonated, leave some comments down in that comment section. Also, if you like stories such as these, make sure you hit that subscribe bell so you never miss whenever we upload. Until we meet again, keep your healing intentional, your boundaries solid, and your peace protected.